It's the Law.
Welcome to It's the Law, a program produced and presented by the Guyana Association of Women's Lawyers. On this program, we're given an in-depth look at Guyana's laws. This is our introductory program where we look at the court system in Guyana.
I'm Alana Lal, president of the Guyana Association of Women Lawyers. We are an association, not-for-profit association, dealing with the rights of women and children particularly. Our motto is Women Supporting Justice and Equality. We've been around for approximately 35 years, and this is the work that we do. We're made up of a membership of lawyers, women lawyers, and I'm here to talk to you about It's the Law. I will talk about going to court. Primarily, there are 6 main courts in Guyana. The Caribbean Court of Justice at the top, the Court of Appeal, the Full Court, the High Court, the Land Court, and the Magistrates Court. The Magistrates Court primarily focuses on the largest number of matters and proceedings before the courts. They deal with issues such as assault, petty theft, abusive language, landlord and tenant claims, and claims, for example, below $100,000. These proceedings are generally instituted and conducted by the prosecution, which is led by the DPP or a police officer in some cases, and also the Magistrates Court deals with conducting preliminary inquiries and committal proceedings. This is in relation to more serious offenses such as rape, manslaughter, murder. Such matters are very serious offenses and usually go before a judge and jury, but before they get to that stage, they begin in the magistrate court, where the magistrate determines whether or not there is sufficient evidence to put before a judge and jury. In these proceedings, such persons may be discharged if there is insufficient evidence to determine whether or not the matter should go to the High Court before a judge and jury. If the matter is discharged, it does not mean that it is an acquittal of the person or it is not a finding of not guilty. It simply means that the person is discharged because at present there is insufficient evidence to lay against this person, which we call the accused. In the magistrate court, the magistrates are addressed as Your Worship. I move on to the High Court. The High Court deals with primarily 2 areas: civil jurisdiction and criminal jurisdiction. For the criminal jurisdiction in the High Court, they deal with serious offenses only. Example, murder, rape, manslaughter. These offenses go before a judge and jury, a jury of 12 members, and they determine the innocence or guilt of the accused or accused. So they also deal with, in a civil jurisdiction, they deal with tort, commercial matters, matters of administrative law, judicial matters, constitutional matters in that regard. And the High Court sits 1 judge to hear these matters. The location of the High Courts can be found in each county, Georgetown, New Amsterdam, and Suddy. Next, we have the Full Court of Appeal. The Full Court of Appeal is an extension of an appeal court which sits 2 judges of the High Court. The 2 judges of the High Court hears appeal matters from the High Court if it is a decision from a judge in chamber and if it is a decision from the Magistrates Court. These 2 judges would make a decision based on that appeal as a review court. There is also the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal constitutes at least 3 judges, which includes the Chancellor in some cases, and has a 5-member panel of judges. The 3 judges that sit in the Court of Appeal, the Justices of Appeal, preside over matters for review as well, and they hear appeals from the High Court, from the Full Court, and in some instances from Magistrates Court. The Caribbean Court of Justice is the final and highest court of appeal for Guyana, and they have 2 jurisdictions. The first jurisdiction of the Court of Appeal of the Caribbean Court of Justice is its Appellate jurisdiction, which means matters are appealed from the Court of Appeal to the Caribbean Court of Justice. However, if there are matters challenging the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, that is the original jurisdiction of the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is a direct application to that court. We also have what we refer to as the Land Court. The land court is an arm of the high court. The judge, the commissioner of title, as is referred to there, the land court judge, is referred to as Your Honor, and they preside primarily on land issues that touch land registration areas and the deed registration areas, both subject to two pieces of legislation, the Land Registration Act and the Deeds Registry Act. So, who presides over these matters in the different courts? In the magistrate, you would know, a magistrate presides over those matters and is referred to as Your Worship. In the High Court, a puisne judge presides over these matters before the High Court, referred to as Your Honor. And the head of those judges, which composes at least a maximum of 20 High Court judges, is the Chief Justice. And sitting at the full court, 2 judges are also referred to as Your Honor. In the Court of Appeal, the Chancellor, who is the head of the judiciary, sits with the other at least two justices of appeal. Now, I move on to how you begin a legal proceeding. Beginning legal proceedings in Guyana, it depends on the type of matters that you have. A plaint, for example, can be filed in a magistrate court if the claim is less than $100,000. If it is a claim for more than $100,000, if you're claiming damages for an accident, a tort, negligence, a breach of contract, it goes to the High Court and an application is filed based on a statement of claim. The High Court primarily deals with 3 types of application. You can have an application that is filed as a statement of claim, which means that the issues are in dispute and you require the judge to make a determination on these issues. You can have a claim that is called a fixed date application. In a fixed date application, there are not really triable issues to be determined in relation to factual matters. There are issues, for example, a declaratory order for rights that perhaps you claim that you have a right to a certain declaratory order. There's also, for example, constitutional matters where you seek certain declarations. And the third type of way you can come to the High Court is by way of a petition. Petition usually is filed, for example, in the land proceedings where you make a petition to the land court to claim prescriptive title. So these are the 3 main ways you can bring civil proceedings in the High Court. In the criminal aspect of the High Court, we look at the judge and jury trials. And these matters are proffered by the DPP and they're led by the DPP, prosecuted by the DPP. Persons can appear in the High Court, in the Magistrate Court, without legal representation, but it is always strongly advised that you have legal representation because these matters determine strict issues of laws that only a lawyer can interpret and apply. Now, in relation to the full Court of Appeal, the full Court of Appeal deals with appeals that comes from the Magistrate Court. If it is a summary, a minor offense, and a person is displeased with that proceeding, an appeal goes to the full Court of Appeal if it is a summary proceeding. Also, if a decision is made by a judge in chamber as to certain orders, that appeal can lay also with the full Court of Appeal. If the decision of the High Court, a judge making a decision in a civil proceeding, for example, as I explained, or in a criminal matter, those appeals lay before the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal sits the 3 judges who hear these matters and make a determination. It could be an issue of law only or law and fact. Now, we spoke about if you need an attorney at law, and in most cases, you need an attorney at law to represent you in these proceedings because it is your right to have legal representation. Now, finally, how do you dress? What is your attire for court? The court requires conservative attire, conservative, sober colors. When you're going to court, it is important that you show respect to the court. And this is not only in the High Court or the Court of Appeal, but for all the courts. You show respect to the court, and you do so by wearing sober colors and you dress conservatively. I will invite at the next segment one of my colleagues to speak on the Children's Court, which is another type of court that has recently been developed and established in Guyana, and it is becoming very important for us to zero in on this and speak about the Children's Court and how the Juvenile Justice Act impacts Guyana and the juveniles of Guyana.
You have been listening to It's the Law, a program produced and presented by the Guyana Association of Women's Lawyers. The contents of this program are not to be taken instead of legal advice.